Halo the Master Chief Collection was revealed to the world at E3 of 2014. The goal of this collection was to allow players to play the Master Chief's entire saga in one location on the Xbox One console in preparation for Halo 5 Guardians, which was slated to release later the next year in 2015. However, as Dan Ayub, whose name I am probably absolutely butchering, would come out and tell us, this wasn't just a collection of the existing Halo games. November of 2014 marked the 10-year anniversary of Halo 2, and therefore, Halo 2 would be getting the full anniversary treatment similar to what Combat Evolved had seen in years past. Now, this wouldn't be quite like Halo CE though, as we'll get into, although they do share a ton of similarities once you kind of break it down. Halo 2 Anniversary aimed to maintain Halo 2's classic gameplay by not only shipping with Halo 2 Classics multiplayer, but also the remastered Anniversary Edition, which was meant to show off the power of the Xbox One. This video won't go into depth on why Halo 2 Classic didn't meet the promises of being exactly how you remember it, but to be honest, that is more of an in-depth discussion for more hardcore fans. Basically, long story short, is there's still bugs that plague it to this day that make it not play like you would remember it from the original release. Today though, we're going to talk about why Halo 2 Anniversary, the multiplayer, is a bad Halo 2. So before we dive into Halo 2 Anniversary, let's first take a trip back to 2011, where on the 10-year anniversary of Halo CE, 343, with the help of both Saber Interactive on the campaign front and Certain Affinity on the multiplayer front, released Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary. In this package, the campaign was completely overhauled with new graphics, textures, support for co-op over Xbox Live along with the multiplayer mode, remastered sound effects, music, and random added extras such as achievements and hidden in-game collectibles. Overall, the game was pretty decently received, and the feature to swap from the original graphics to the remastered graphics with a click of a button was a feature that many loved. However, the game was not perfect and was criticized for the many glitches and inconsistencies brought forth by the use of the Gearbox port as the base game, along with just a general dislike of the remastered art style and criticism toward the implementation of the multiplayer. Now, in Halo CEA, the multiplayer is more or less a Halo Reach playlist, and by that I mean not only could you play it on Halo CEA, you could also play the game from Halo Reach as a playlist. In here, there would be 6 remastered maps from Halo CE, Halo CE PC, and Halo 2, and these consisted of Battle Canyon, which was a remake of Battle Creek, High Noon, which is a remake of Hang 'em High, Penance, which is a remake of Damnation, Ridgeline, which is a remake of Timberland, Solitary, which is a remake of Prisoner, and Breakneck, which is a remake of Headlong. All of these had the new remastered versions along with what they considered the classic version, which basically meant in the anniversary version they took a little bit of liberties with the map to kind of build the map for Halo Reach's sandbox, but in the classic version, those were more or less accurate remakes of the Halo CE maps. So you'll notice on certain maps like Battle Creek or Battle Canyon, for example, in Halo Reach's version, they've added the back section where the teleporters are, and then they've replaced the original teleporter location with a grav lift to get you on top of the base. However, in the classic version, you'll notice that they have instead put the teleporters back where they used to be, and they've completely blocked off the back section. Other maps do similar things just like this. Apparently, there was also some firefight mode that the game had that honestly, I have zero recollection of, but I stumbled into it when writing the script, so yeah, that existed too, and here's some footage of it if I could find it on the internet. So the main reasons that Halo CEA's multiplayer was criticized was the fact that it's just Halo Reach kind of reskinned to play like Halo CE, and this is going to be a somewhat common trend you're going to see later in this video. So by that I mean it utilizes Reach assets and sounds for the multiplayer, it uses the gun models and everything that you're familiar with, and since Halo Reach doesn't have power-ups on the maps, they had to jankily implement them. So Overshield has this weird fiery effect that follows the guy who has Overshield, even though in Halo CE there was actually no visual indication of Overshield, and just other weird things like that where they tried to make Reach, like I said, play like Halo Combat Evolved. One big major change here is just the way that the Halo Reach pistol functions is nothing like the Halo CE pistol, even though in this playlist it was changed to be a 3-shot kill similar to the Halo CE pistol. Now earlier we talked about all the maps that were remade, and they play okay in the Halo CEA playlist, But in my opinion, when you actually play these maps in Halo Reach, which they were used in, not only were these maps used for the Halo CEA playlist, they were also implemented not only to Halo Reach matchmaking, but even the competitive scene in some places. While some maps like Battle Canyon play pretty well in Halo Reach for the most part, some of the maps like Solitary and Hang 'em High just play pretty atrociously with Halo Reach's sandbox. Now understand, when you're looking at Halo CEA, the way that these maps played with all of Halo Reach's sandbox isn't really what the discussion is about or was about back in the day, but I thought I would just kind of throw that in. Is basically these maps were remade with kind of a 2-for-1 mindset. Not only did they fulfill the maps for Halo CEA's multiplayer, they also served as DLC maps for Halo Reach as a whole. So now that we have a background on Halo CEA, we can now move on to 2014 with the release of the Master Chief Collection and therefore Halo 2 Anniversary. Similar to last time, the campaign was completely overhauled and even included the blur cutscenes that are highly praised. Unlike CEA's campaign, Halo 2 Anniversary's campaign is pretty much loved. You will see some criticisms here and there. I'm not going to tell you it's perfect, but it did a lot better job of remastering the original graphics and everything than CEA did. Halo 2 Anniversary also absolutely nailed the art style, and I would argue that its art style that they used in H2A campaign is the best that Halo has looked to date. So again, similar to last time though, 343 decided to remaster the multiplayer using the most recent game's engine, this time being Halo 4, instead of just using the remastered graphics for multiplayer, which is a decision that I don't honestly fully understand. If I had to guess, it may be due to an accessibility thing, as both Halo CE and Halo 2, by the point that those games came out, were pretty old and outdated to a certain degree, so maybe 343 thought that these remastered versions utilizing Reach and then utilizing Halo 4 would be more accessible to newer fans, but honestly, I don't know, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. There's also the weird thing where maybe 343 truly believed that Halo 2 Anniversary multiplayer played better and was more fun than a nicer looking version of Halo 2 Classic. Just like Halo CE Anniversary, Halo 2 Anniversary, with the work by Certain Affinity, again, was given 6 remastered maps utilizing Halo 4's engine, and these consisted of Bloodline, which is a remake of Coagulation, Lockdown, which is a remake of Lockout, Shrine, which is a remake of Sanctuary, Stonetown, which is a remake of Zanzibar, Warlord, which is a remake of Warlock, and Zenith, which is a remake of Ascension. We also got 3 different Forge canvases that were actually pretty cool, and the skyboxes on some of these, especially Skyward and Nebula, look really, really cool. Later on, we even got a 7th map that was released as free DLC, kind of as a, hey, we messed up the MCC, and that was Remnant, which was a remake of Relic. We were also given all of the game modes that Halo 2 Classic had, along with 3 added game modes, which were Infection, which is a mode that people used to play in Halo 2 Classic, but they had to do it by switching teams and everything, so having it included in Halo 2 Anniversary was pretty cool. And then we also got Race and Ricochet. Race is Race, and if you like it, then you like it. If you don't, then you probably don't care about it. And Ricochet is honestly a pretty fun mode that I wouldn't mind seeing again in Halo Infinite, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see there. One big difference between Halo 2 Anniversary and Halo CE Anniversary multiplayer though, is that they actually remodeled a lot of the guns and even changed some of the sounds to look and sound more like the classic editions. Now I'm not going to say this is perfect and across the board, but instead of your battle rifle looking like this from Halo 4 and sounding like this from Halo 4, it looked and sounded like this in Halo 2 Anniversary. We also got new weapons in the form of the silenced SMG, the assault rifle, and a red sword for whatever good that is, and new vehicles featuring the Hornet, the Gun Goose, which is actually the first time the Gun Goose had appeared in the Halo franchise, at least in the mainline FPS games, and then the Mongoose. So all of these new and remastered features sound pretty cool, right? Yeah, a lot of the work they did on Halo 2 Anniversary's multiplayer is pretty cool. But despite that, why does the game suck at being Halo 2 then? Well, first let's start off with the map pool. So I understand, just like Halo CEA, Halo 2 Anniversary on launch was given 6 maps. Now, one thing I would argue here is that Halo CE Anniversary was more of an ancillary release, and I don't really remember it having this huge release like the Master Chief Collection did, where Halo 2 Anniversary was supposed to be one of the biggest parts of it, right? Not only was Halo 2 Anniversary the new portion of the Master Chief Collection, it was also the game that the HCS focused on for that entire year between the release of the Master Chief Collection and Halo 5. Because of this, I think not only should they have given us more maps, at the very least, they should have chose different maps. I am by no means some huge Halo 2 Classic player, but just off the top of my head, I can name some notable exclusions, and then I can maybe give you why they were maybe excluded, but then we'll kind of break down that principle on why that shouldn't matter. So the first main one that comes to mind is obviously Midship. Midship is one of the most classic maps in the Halo franchise, and is a fantastic map for competitive play, which really would have helped Halo 2 Anniversary's competitive side. Now, I understand they did remake this map in Halo 5 as Truth. It really shouldn't have stopped them from putting it in Halo 2 Anniversary. If anything, this could have given you more incentive because it would have introduced a lot of those newer fans to the map before they played it in Halo 5. Because Halo 5's version is slightly different anyways, and Halo 5 plays completely different than Halo 2 Anniversary. I really don't think people would have played Truth in Halo 5 and been like, "Aw man, I've been playing the Midship remake in Halo 2 Anniversary for the past year. This stinks. I wish we would have gotten a different map." Some other notable exclusions are Beaver Creek, which is another good competitive map. Now I understand that one was remade in Halo CE Anniversary, so there is some overlap there, but again, I really don't think that just because a map is remade in a previous game or going to be remade in a future game that should stop it from being remade. And then there's maps like Turf, which are really fun and would have been cool to see in Halo 2 Anniversary. Again, they did remake this map in Halo Online, but most people never even played that game, and that came out after Halo 2 Anniversary anyways. So those are some of the maps that I may have included either in addition to or instead of some of the maps they chose. But let's just break down the map pool that was included in the game and why it was bad for this game specifically. So for 4v4 maps, we had Lockdown, Shrine, Warlord, and Zenith. I really don't have any issues with Lockdown, Shrine, or Warlord. Lockdown, Shrine, and Warlord were the three maps that made up your competitive map pool in this game, and I think that was a big issue too, is only having three maps that were competitively viable probably wasn't the best bet if you were going to run HCS tournaments on this game for an entire year. And then you obviously had Zenith, and in my opinion, Ascension just isn't a very good map. Now I understand it has that nostalgia for people who played Tower of Power on it or Infection on it in the past in Halo 2 Classic, but as a social map, it's pretty boring just because the flow of the map isn't very fun. You get in really unbalanced games. You can get shot from pretty much anywhere on the map depending on where you're going, and a lot of times it just ends up with people sitting in the big base on one side and that little tiny base on the other side, and you slowly try and make your way around. In my opinion, it's just not a very fun map. It's also obviously not a competitive map at all, which is why HCS didn't use it. And then you have the big team battle maps, which you only had 2 of on launch, and that's another big issue. But you had Stone Town, which is a remake of Zanzibar, and that's a good map. I love that map. And then you had Bloodline, which is a remake of Coagulation, which is a remake of Blood Gulch. And I've talked about this in the past. I just don't think Blood Gulch is a good map. But specifically in Halo 2 Anniversary, this was a poor map choice. So Bloodline and Coagulation are pretty open maps. Now I understand they did make some changes to Bloodline to kind of give you a little bit more cover in the middle, but it's still a pretty open map, and playing this map is just atrocious with the Halo 2 Anniversary Battle Rifle, which we're going to get into more later. But basically you just get lasered from across the map all the time, which isn't something that happened on Coagulation in Halo 2 Classic. And this is why I wouldn't have chose that map. I would have definitely went with a different map, even though Coagulation or Blood Gulch is more iconic than maybe some of the other Halo 2 BTB maps. But when they were picking maps to remake for this game, they really should have focused on picking maps that played well with the Halo 2 Anniversary sandbox instead of just picking iconic Halo 2 Classic maps. You also had the added additions to some of the maps, like the ice that can fall down on Lockdown or whatever it's called. Now that stuff, while I would say probably wasn't the most balanced or most well implemented feature, was something I didn't mind them trying. I would love to see more interactive map elements in Halo maps going forward, and I think it is a good way to expand upon the classic Halo sandbox. So even though the specific examples they used, like the ice or the waterfall on Shrine, aren't the best, I didn't mind them trying this. But when we move on to just kind of the way that these maps were designed and just the overall Halo 2 Anniversary, I guess, art style, the visibility is horrible. When you play Halo 2 Classic, you have no problems seeing your enemies. The game is very clear, it's very concise, and you know what's going on. If there's an enemy on your screen, you're able to easily spot them and it's not an issue. However, on the Halo 2 Anniversary maps, these maps in isolation look really good. When 343 did those cool little fly-throughs where they showed one side was the Halo 2 Classic map and the other side was the Halo 2 Anniversary map, those comparisons are awesome. The remastered versions of the map look really cool, and they did really add a modern touch to those maps. However, in practice when playing on these maps, the visibility just ends up horrible. There's so much going on, there's so many textures, there's so much visual clutter on your screen that it really distracts from your eyes, and you really have to focus to see your enemies, which is not something that you want in a competitive arena shooter. This isn't a game like Call of Duty or Arma or Escape from Tarkov, where sometimes having characters slightly blend into the maps and the backgrounds is okay. Halo is a game where we used red and blue for a reason. It's so that the characters stick out and you know exactly where your enemies are. You don't want people to blend in with the background and get the first shot on you just because you weren't able to see them immediately. This is also compounded by the fact that Halo 2 Anniversary's like gamma levels or brightness are just way too low out of the box. These maps are extremely dark and you pretty much have to crank the gamma up a ton to be able to see anything. Moving on a bit, we'll kind of get away from the maps, and that's just the fact that the gunplay in Halo 2 Anniversary doesn't work for the mechanics of Halo 2 Anniversary. So like we talked about earlier, Halo 2 Anniversary's multiplayer is built off Halo 4's engine, and therefore all of the guns and all of the characters and everything function very similar to the way that they functioned in Halo 4. Not only do you have things like spring jumps, you also have the same bullet magnetism and aim assist that a game like Halo 4 had, which you could even argue for Halo 4 was too generous. However, in a game like Halo 2 Anniversary where characters no longer have sprint, they no longer have thrust, they no longer have jetpack, having these really generous and easy to use weapons makes the game really dull. Because now everyone is a god with the battle rifle and the sniper. Everyone can four-shot someone halfway across the map, and everyone can dome people with the sniper because the way that the mechanics of the game just make that so dang easy. Halo is a game that has always been pretty heavily team-focused. When you get into the higher levels of play, you always want to be team-shotting enemies and whatnot, and not really trying to take a lot of one-on-one fights. But if you look at a game like Halo 2 Classic, Halo 2 Classic arguably has the highest skill cap when it comes to one-on-one gun battles, or just gun battles in general. The only game obviously that would maybe compete with this is Halo CE for different reasons. But in Halo 2 Classic, not only did you have the button combos on the battle rifle that allowed you to kind of get advantages whether you were going to BXR someone that was close, or if you were good, maybe you were going to double or quad shot someone that was farther away. Halo 2 Anniversary loses all of this. So now all you have is an extremely generous and easy to use battle rifle as your main weapon. What this leads to is everyone just gets four shot, and the game just turns into a super team play oriented game. No longer do you really have the one-on-one outplay potential in a one-on-one gunfight, and instead you're winning a lot more of your gunfights based on who got the first shot, and maybe that was because you didn't see him, or two, whoever has more backup from teammates. Now that second point isn't a problem. In Halo, you should win gunfights when you have backup from your teammates, but it shouldn't be one of the main principles for winning a gunfight. There should still be some skill to winning a one-on-one gunfight, and Halo 2 Anniversary loses all of that. I also mentioned that they got rid of the button combos. Now, I personally am not a huge advocate of Halo 2 Classic's button combos. I think in a modern day, they are kind of obscure and they're hard to learn if you aren't someone that's going to go out of your way to look things up at the internet. They're not something that you'll just pick up by playing the game, and personally I prefer the higher skill caps of games to be things that you can pick up mostly from the game intuitively. However, if you're going to remake Halo 2, the button combos now are a huge aspect of Halo 2 Classic, so getting rid of those entirely was something that a lot of Halo 2 fans were not a fan of, especially since those button combos still existed in the campaign version of Halo 2 Anniversary. Now obviously coding button combos into Halo 4's engine for Halo 2 Anniversary would have been a mess, But this is like one of the reasons where I think it's just weird that they chose to remake Halo 2 Anniversary using Halo 4's engine instead of using the foundation and the groundwork that they had from Halo 2 Anniversary's campaign. One thing I'll even say here, and this might be something that will annoy Halo 2 Classic fans that really like button combos, is why couldn't they use the campaign graphics, the campaign's gunplay, the campaign's sound effects and everything, and just code out the button combos for multiplayer if 343 thought those were such a bad thing? Well, Halo 2 Anniversary's campaign looks amazing, plays amazing, and sounds amazing. We could have played that in multiplayer with patched out button combos, and I think you would have bridged the gap toward a lot of the Halo 2 Classic fans a lot easier than when you tried to ship them Halo 4 with sprint and other mechanics removed. The next point isn't a big one, but that's just that the customization sucked. I want to say at launch there was like 3 armor sets and you basically just picked which armor set you wanted and that was about it. And then as an elite you had a couple more armor sets and that was basically it. It's not a huge deal, but they could have done a lot with the customization, especially since they used Halo 4's engine anyways. Even now in the Master Chief Collection, years after Halo 2 Anniversary has been released, it's a bummer they haven't added more armors into the game, especially since a lot of those assets are sitting right there with Halo 4. And that goes the same for the maps that we talked about earlier. Not only do I think they could have remade different Halo 2 maps, they could have just remade other maps or utilized other maps that Halo 4 already had. I made a video back when Halo 2 Anniversary was about to release on PC, and some of the maps that I outlined in that I think would have been slam dunks for Halo 2 Anniversary's multiplayer on launch, being Pitfall and Ragnarok right off the bat, because those are literally Halo 3 maps, and those would have played fine in Halo 2 Anniversary Sandbox because it's a classic game after all, and those are very strong classic maps. I also suggested some maps like Haven, Exile, and Skyline. Now those would be more of a stretch and would need some testing, but they were some of the Halo 4 maps that I felt would play fine with classic settings. However, just the addition of Pitfall and Ragnarok, which is the Pit and Valhalla, would have given the game 8 maps on launch and 9 maps once they added in the DLC map, and that would have been a much healthier map pool than what we got. So overall, is Halo 2 Anniversary multiplayer a bad game? If you ask me, no. Others may say it is straight up objectively bad, but I get what it was trying to do, and that was to recreate classic style gameplay with that modern touch, but where it failed is the many shortfalls that the Halo 4 engine brings to the table. Whether that's gunplay, visibility, or whatever other issues you had with Halo 4, those are still present in Halo 2 Anniversary because they decided to build off that game's sandbox. While Halo 2 Anniversary's campaign is a campaign I love and would honestly recommend to anyone, I can't say the same for its multiplayer, which is a huge bummer because Halo 2 Anniversary's multiplayer really had the opportunity to bring classic Halo to the modern age. And instead, what we got was a game that classic fans don't really like and not that many modern fans like. And just overall, it's like the least played game in the Master Chief Collection for a variety of reasons. And that's not because it's objectively terrible, but it's just because it's not as good as it could have been. So to close out this video, I'm going to leave you with what may be the topic of a future video, and that is I don't want to see Halo 3 Anniversary, at least on the multiplayer front, because the last thing that I want to or need to see is Halo 3's multiplayer being somewhat emulated or recreated using the Slipspace engine or whatever other engine we're using at the time. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, you know what to do. This video was sort of a long time coming. I teased it a few weeks back, but getting the script together and kind of deciding what I wanted to write for it took a little bit longer than normal. So I don't know. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, that sucks, I guess, because this one took a while and I'm in this weird space right now where I don't actually know if I want to spend all this time making Halo videos or if I want to make different videos for other games or if I want to just make like fun gameplay stuff. Just talking and analyzing Halo right now, it's just, I'm kind of sort of losing that motivation, and I know we're probably going to start getting Infinite news here soon, hopefully, and that'll give me more stuff to talk about and analyze, but kind of on my wit's end. So I don't know. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, comment something to boost the algorithm, do whatever. And also, if you want to watch me stream live on Twitch, you can follow me, links in description. You can also follow me on Twitter. And with that said, I'll see you all next time.